Welcome to 100 Yards of Football. If you like the video today, please come in and share. We'll surely appreciate it here on 100 Yards of Football. I'd like to give special thanks and honor to my producer who's making it happen for me this morning, the very talented Mr. Jeremiah Long. I'm your host, Vincent Turner, and today's video is on Rick Upchurch, NFL legend, Denver Broncos by way of the University of Minnesota. So if you like the video, please come in and share it. We'll surely appreciate it here on 100 Yards of Football. When you think about kick returner, punt returner, you think about the excitement of seeing a gentleman go all the way like 60 yards for a touchdown or return the kickoff 102 yards for a touchdown. Just does something to the crowd. It does something to you in your blood as a football fan. It's what I call taking the roof off the house. When you look at all the great kick returners and punt returners that's played in the National Football League, you got to go back to Billy White Shoes Johnson, Mel Gray, Brian Mitchell, Michael Bates, Dante Hall, Josh Cribbs. I'm even going to throw Cordell Patterson in there. Steve Smith when he was returning kicks for the Carolina Panthers. And then think about Devin Hester, who's going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year in the 2024 class. Well, you know what? This gentleman on the screen right here, Rick Upchurch, was just as good as it is those gentlemen I just named. A young man out of the University of Minnesota who played running back, wide receiver back in the mid-70s. He was an all-purpose guy. He ended up leaving the University of Minnesota with 1,783 career yards rushing. He had 18 receptions at the University of Minnesota for 242 yards. He had 18 touchdowns in his career at the University of Minnesota, and he had 305 return yards. But what was special is that he got drafted in the 1975 NFL draft. And you know he was a talented football player, and you know he had to bring his A game because think about who was in that draft. Steve Brokowski, Sweetness, Walter Payton, Randy White, the mean steam guy from the University of Maryland at the nose tackle, Dr. Doom out of Jackson State University, Robert Bazile, Louis Wright, Russ Francis, Gary Big Hands Johnson out of Grambling State University, Fred Dean out of Louisiana Tech, Tony Peters, corner out of Oklahoma, Rob Perry out of Colorado State, and a legend at the quarterback position, Pat Hayden. Rick Upchurch was in that draft. But you know, I didn't really see Rick Upchurch come onto the scene. Really haven't heard anything about him because he played in the Big Ten. He didn't play with a winning program at the University of Minnesota. But it was that week one in the 1975 season when I was 15 years old, watching the weekly games on NBC. When Rick Upchurch is a rookie that year, first game of the year now, had 284 all-purpose yards, and he had a 90-yard touchdown reception against the Kansas City Chiefs. Then I said, you know what? I'm going to start following this young man out of Toledo, Ohio, by way of the University of Minnesota. Go for Gophers. Then I look at what he did when he was with the Denver Broncos. Think about his NFL career. He ended up with 248 punt returns for 3,008 yards. He returned 95 kickoffs in his career for 2,355 yards. Then he had 349 yards rushing, and he added another 200 yards receiving for a total of 10,081 yards in his career and 35 touchdowns. He had 8 by punt returns, 24 by receiving, and 3 by rushing. He was a very special football player, and he's doing what a lot of players are doing right now. He kind of set the tone for being an all-purpose guy who could do a lot of skill level to help his offensive out on that side of the ball. But what really sticks out in my mind is that he played on that Orange Crush team in 1977 and made it to the Super Bowl. And you think about that football team, how special the Denver Broncos were that year. Had a very fiery coach in Red Miller. They had somewhat a reject guy who had played with the Dallas Cowboys as a quarterback position in Craig Morton. I don't mean to say it like that, but it's what it is. They had a running back out of the University of Michigan that was a rookie that year, Rob Lytle. They had Otis Armstrong out of Purdue University. They had Haven Moses. They had Riley Odoms. They had Randy Gradishar, the Deed Ohio State Buckeyes. They had the young man out of the U by the name of Reuben Carter that was playing in those type of position. They had the mean steroid man, Mr. Lai Alzado. He was nasty and mean back then at the defensive tackle position. They had the Colorado State guy, excuse me, not the Colorado State guy, HBCU South Carolina State guy, Mr. Barry Shavers. At the other tackle position, they had two safeties that was pretty good in Billy Thompson and Bernard Jackson. But this guy right here, Rick Upchurch, pound for pound, to me was the best player on that Super Bowl team. But what amazed me was his skill set as a punt returner, kick returner. He gets all A pluses. He was a guy judging the ball at his highest level, A plus. Securing the ball once he got it in return, whether it was a kickoff return or punt return, A plus. Shifty as hell as a kick returner, A plus. Quickness. Ooh, when he got the ball in the air and received it, that first move, that quickness, it was no tomorrow. The awareness as a punt returner and kick returner, A plus. Making the first guy miss. There was nobody better than Rick Upchurch doing it at a high level. Quick change of direction as receiving kicks, A plus. The ability as a kick returner and punt returner to operate in tight spaces, A plus. And he had the strength, one of the strongest guys on the team in returning kicks and punts. He will run through your tackle. Nimble feet. You got to have that when you play in that position and when you're returning kicks. And he was, what I like to say, my young man out of Lufkin, Texas, Mark Denham, says it all the time. He was fearless, fearless, fearless as a punt returner, kick returner. Rick Upchurch was special. And I'm going to take 3 moments here when I'm going to take to my grave and remember about Rick Upchurch. The 1976 season, week 2, against the Cleveland Browns. He became the first player to have 2 punt returns for touchdowns in the game. A 73-yard as Denver defeated Cleveland in that day, 44-13. Then in the 1982 season, opening game against the San Francisco 49ers. A San Francisco 49ers, may we speak, was coming off a Super Bowl the previous season. Had the young stars like Joe Montana, Ronnie Lott, Eric Wright, Carlton Williamson, Hacksaw Reynolds out of the University of Tennessee at the linebacker position. Well, you know what Rick Upchurch did in that game? He had a 67-yard punt return in that game, and he had a 37-yard touchdown reception. But the game that I'm going to remember most of all, I was getting ready to graduate from high school, going into my last few months, January in 1978. I had so many guys that came down to my house, or my parents' house, on 763 Dunn Avenue in Memphis, Tennessee, to watch the game with me. I had my man Lawrence Taylor. Excuse me, not Lawrence Taylor, but Lawrence King. That's what we call him, LT. One of my best friends over at the house. A gentleman by the name of Dwayne Arnold was there. My other great friend, Greg Baby Lyons. All of us was there watching the football game. And I remember in that Super Bowl game, Rick Upchurch took a 69-yard kickoff return back to the house. But if you go back and pull that play up on YouTube, look how he returned that kick. He ran through about 4 or 5 tackles, and he kept moving like an energized bunny. Man, this gentleman was very special. And the one thing that I'm going to take to my grave, I'm going to take several things to my grave about Rick Upchurch, was that I was at an event back in 2008 here in the metro Atlanta area. It was a black college football team, All-America team, first team, HBCUs. And the event was held at the Hyatt Regency in downtown Atlanta. Now, granted, you got all these stars that's in this room, from Doug Williams to Dexter Clingsdale to James Harris, to Mel Blount, to Everson Walls. And I'm sitting over in the corner by myself and trying to just stay in my lane and stay to myself and watching all these great athletes talk and kind of mingle. Well, there was a gentleman that came up to me, kind of still a well-built gentleman, had some nice, good-looking, very, I call intelligent glasses. And he said, "Hey, how you doing, young man? What is your name? Who are you representing today?" I like to introduce myself. "I'm Rick Upchurch." And I said, "I know who you are, Mr. Upchurch. You played for the Minnesota Gophers and you played with the Denver Broncos." And he looked at me and he said, "You know what? You're going to be my best friend the rest of the night." And he sat down and told me some great stories about his career, not only in college playing for the University of Minnesota, but he also told me he was a teammate of Tony Dungy. And he also told me what was it like to be on that 1977 Denver Broncos team that made it to the Super Bowl and played the Dallas Cowboys that year in the Superdome in New Orleans. And they had a running back that was a rookie by the name of Tony Dorsett. One of my most enjoyable evenings of my life, talking to this young man right here, Rick Upchurch. So if you like the video today, please come in and share. We'll surely appreciate it here on 100 Yards of Football. Special thanks to my producer, the legend, the talented Mr. Jeremiah Long. My final words, I've been blessed a lot in my life, and I've been blessed to be around a lot of great people. But you know what? Rick Upchurch is right there with one of the greatest people I ever met. That's why today I did a video on the legend, the gentleman out of the University of Minnesota, by way of the Denver Broncos, Mr. Rick Upchurch. Y'all be blessed here on 100 Yards of Football.